This is Plan B, Episode 4, for April 30th, 2013. Hi everyone, and welcome to Plan B, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show contemplating the future and present of Bitcoin, with insights for the novice, shop talk for the expert, and opinionated discussion for the interested observer of Bitcoin and related technologies. My name is Chris, and joining me every week is my co-host, Drew.
Hello.
Hey man, welcome to Episode 4, a month.
I know, right? I didn't think it'd get this far.
I know.
But hey, here we are. We're going strong.
I didn't think we'd make it past episode. No, I'm kidding. I knew we're in it for the long haul, and man, we have a really, really good show today. Something that Drew and I wanted to do since before the show ever even went on the air is talk to the guy behind BitVegas, the Minecraft casino, and we're going to tell you more about that in a little bit, so we're going to chat with him later on in the show. We've also had some fantastic news for Bitcoin this week, but sort of the meta story of the week is how boring the price has been. Like, since we were on air last, the price has basically done nothing.
Yeah, it's been basically the same, right?
It kind of has. I got the 7-day up on the screen right now. And, you know, there's been some definite fluctuations, but we're sitting at $137.99 as in US dollars as we record this. And the reason why I bring that up is because we have had some of the best news in Bitcoin I think we have seen in weeks. I mean, just so much good stuff has come out this week. And it's still interesting that the price has not moved much, but maybe that's actually a good sign. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But first, Drew, what do you say we get into the feedback? Are you ready?
Yeah, bring it on.
All right, so Victor writes in. He says, "Hi, Drew and Chris. Kudos to you for a great show. Love it. Keep rocking. I'm writing to give you my 2 cents on the image issue, which I personally take a rather different angle on. If you remember last week, we talked with David Perry. Was it last week? And we kind of said that it seems like Bitcoin might be suffering from a little bit of an image problem. Well, he writes in on that. He says, if Bitcoin had a coherent, stronger image, it would create a liability, since its reputation would be more centralized, in the same way that dominance of Mt. Gox creates a weakness being a single point of failure in the practical Bitcoin infrastructure. Look, even if you're suspicious of Max Keiser's motives," and he says, "were you seriously suggesting he just hypes up Bitcoin so then exit to USD? He apparently doesn't agree, and I'm not saying we were suggesting that. He says, showing that vocal advocate is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, individuals can make mistakes and say stupid things, turn evil. But on the other hand, if you're a celebrity, you're susceptible to ridicule, ad hominem insults, etc., and you fall out of the grace, then jeopardizing the overall cause. To sum up, the decentralized nature of Bitcoin is crucial, and it is more beneficial than any marketing strategy, and it does not distort the feature of the system anyway by individuals taking too large of a share of advocacy. I think it's effectively parallel to the free software open source movement or the internet itself." It's a good point.
Yeah.
Maybe not one person can ruin it. He mentioned Max Keiser. It's one of those things we kick around. We say, what's Max Keiser's deal? Because he at one point does seem to be a good advocate, but then this last week he released an article saying that Bitcoin should be pegged to the US dollar.
Oh.
Did you see this?
Yeah, I saw something.
And he said it should be centralized through the Bitcoin Foundation, and they should broadcast the price to all exchanges.
No, thank you.
Essentially centralizing. It just seems like it kind of fundamentally, like, first of all, no one person can really do that. That's just not the way the system works. And you're then negating the benefit of the decentralized nature of Bitcoin just so that way some big hedge fund managers can come in here and buy 1,000 coins at once. And that's really what he's trying to get at.
I don't see that happening. Not going to happen. I don't even think it's a very good idea anyway.
But I do agree overall with Victor's overall point that, it is good. Now, John the Missionary, you grabbed this email, and boy, is this an interesting one. He says, I want to give you an idea for a theme you can have on one of your shows, how Bitcoin can make a difference for people living under oppression. I'm currently studying theology, and I have plans to go to China as a missionary. Now, as an evangelical Christian, this can potentially be somewhat dangerous. This is one of the reasons why I love Bitcoins. They give me an opportunity to transfer funds from the churches back home in Sweden to the underground churches in China. I don't know of any missionary in the field that is using Bitcoins right now, but I think it would make an interesting topic for a different use of Bitcoin. I've started a project to fund my own mission to China through Bitcoins, as well as educating church leaders both at home and abroad about the use of them. I think that there are plenty of Bitcoiners out there that share my faith and would be willing to put their Bitcoins in this kind of holy use. Feel free to contact me. Check out my site at btcmission.com.
Yeah, I mean, that's a cool thing he's doing, but that's, of course, the main benefit is, if you're trying to get money into China, they're going to, raise some question marks, but if it's on a flash drive, nobody knows.
This is a great example, too, of how we sometimes get locked into Bitcoin as this, is it a good store of value? Is it a good this or that? And the reality is there's so many multitudes of uses, potential uses for Bitcoin, that we really have no idea what somebody who's in Sweden that wants to travel to China could potentially want to use Bitcoin for, just like we don't know what somebody in Russia or somebody in Cyprus might want to use Bitcoin for. I think it's just, it speaks to how there's such an inherent need in today's society for a solution like this, even if you're just using it temporarily to move from one currency and go to another country and then extract in that currency. Even if you're just using it as a medium of transfer, really, it's still super critical.
Yeah, and it works really well at that too. I mean, it's like relative to anything else. I mean, you really can't get that kind of flexibility of being able to move, cash from Sweden and, pop it out over in China.
Yeah, I hear horror stories of people trying to wire relatives money overseas, or we've had major issues trying to pay contractors overseas for Jupiter Broadcasting. Huh. It just solves all of that. It just and the other thing that actually,
well, it's good for immigrants too, because I used to work with people from Central America that were they were working here but sending money constantly back down there. Be a really easy way to do it, just using Bitcoin.
So, Andre wrote into the show and he said, "Hey, Drew and Chris, I wanted to see what you guys thought of this idea." And he sent us in a link, and that was all he had. He just wanted to get our take on it. The site is bctip.com, bctip.com. And what it is it is a website where you charge up these Bitcoin tips, and then you print them out and cut them out, and then you give them as tips like you would, cash at a restaurant or a bar.
Yeah, it's like a little voucher thing.
It's a voucher, right, with the amount of Bitcoin on there, with an explanation of what it is, a QR code. It looks very good, and it's neat. You go in there and you charge one up, and then what's also kind of interesting about it is if they don't take advantage of it after 30 days, the money you charged it with returns back to you.
Yeah, that's a really cool feature, because that you'd have to be very fearful about that, because you have to slam it in somebody's hand and beg them to go cash it out. Otherwise they'll toss it back to you.
But let's talk about what this is, though. I mean, is this not the equivalent of the religious pamphlet that the group leaves behind instead of leaving the waitress a tip?
Yeah, it's a little. it definitely stinks of some a little overzealous earnest.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the idea of somebody seeing that and go, "Oh, what the hell is this? I should look this up." And then discovering about Bitcoin, that seems like a really great idea.
It seems great to us, but imagine, handing an old guy this, and he'd be like, "What the hell is this?"
My family, my wife's side of the family is in the restaurant business, and so it's a whole family of waiters and waitresses because they own their own restaurant, and I think this would drive them completely bonkers. So here's what I would say, because I kind of like the idea, and maybe there's some restaurants more and more getting Bitcoin savvy. So maybe in a year, this isn't such a big deal. Right. But what about this? What about you use this, then, you also leave them a couple of dollars, a couple of good old greenbacks or whatever your local currency is. And then, maybe you throw them an extra $1 on the Bitcoin tip.
Yeah, give them a bare minimum in cash that they can use, that they're not going to be pissed about, and they're not going to associate that negativity with, like a buck here in Bitcoins.
Right. I mean, and then if they don't want to use it, then you know what? They don't get the money. But but they still get a tip, and if they do want to figure it out, then that Bitcoin or that tip you gave them, if they hold on to it for a couple of years, it's gonna be one hell of a tip.
Oh yeah, definitely. So it's an investment in your future here. What I'm paying, for this cheeseburger here.
So there
this
you go.
Is a real investment. Think about your retirement.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Maybe this tip might pay for your retirement one day.
I don't know. 0.03.
Or then again, maybe not. So Andre, like we said, maybe mix it up and give them a little bit of both. All right, so you guys have been emailing in, so planb@jupiterbroadcasting.com. That's where you can send in your feedback, or you can start a thread in our subreddit, planbshow.reddit.com, or go to the contact link at the top of the Jupiter Broadcasting site and click that. That's how you can get one of your bits of feedback into our show. Drew, you've been great, too. Been reading through and responding to a lot of the emails, too, so we've been whittling down to the picks that we kind of felt like fit the conversation we wanted to have, and so send those in. You can also text message the show. Just send it in to 1-352-587-5662. That's 352-58 Plan B. Here's the thing. We want you to call in and leave us a voicemail this week and tell us about your mining setup. We're getting a lot of requests to cover mining on the show. Drew, you've been responding to the emails.
Oh yeah, we've been seeing a lot of that stuff, but we get a pretty good amount of feedback. So
yeah, so we're thinking
trying to get back to you guys.
We're thinking we'll hunker down and cover mining, and we want to hear what you have set up because we'd love to play some of those clips in that episode. Just so call in and briefly describe if you have 1 GPU, if you have 1,000, if you work in a CIA super secret lab with 1,000,000 GPUs and experimental ASICs, or if you're, for some reason, we actually got a text message from a guy who is Litecoin mining on his jailbroken iPhone 5. That actually happened. So maybe you're that guy. Call us and leave us a voicemail, 1-352-58 Plan B. And let us know your setup so we can geek out when we're talking about mining next week. All right, and I'll have a little update on my mining setup too. I've got 3 rigs that are going now, and I'm experimenting with a couple of things. So we'll talk about that. But Drew, what do you say we get into some of the news that broke this week?
Yeah, we got some good stuff to talk about. Bring it on.
I know, man. Like I was saying, the price has been pretty steady despite some of this stuff. Let's start with my favorite story of the week because I really think it's one of these things that I think they're putting out a trial balloon and seeing how the reaction is, but I would love to see this happen. There was a little interview going down with the CEO, I believe it was, of PayPal, and he said, you know what? Well, we're kind of thinking about adding Bitcoin as a funding option. And because I'm the fantastic host that I am, I went out and I got us the clip.
Just my left field question.
Sure.
Bitcoin, virtual currencies. What do you make of that?
So I've been spending a lot of time looking at it, and it's truly fascinating, actually, the way that the currency's been designed, and the way that inflation is built in to pay for miners, and all of that is truly fascinating. And I think for us at PayPal, it's just a question of whether Bitcoin will make its way to PayPal as a funding instrument or not, and we're kind of thinking about it. Right?
I guess like the rest of us, we're all kind of watching it sort of with a great deal of interest, but kind of a lot of people have been taken aback by the sort of the velocity of the moves. When you look at your business, what is the next move that you're going to make?
So he said, obviously he's being pretty dodgy, kind of thinking about it, not like he's committing here or anything. What do you think would happen, Drew, if PayPal said, you could fund your PayPal account with Bitcoins? Is that a good thing for Bitcoin?
I would think so. I mean, PayPal has like a huge, they're like the premier. I hate calling it something like an E, like an internet kind of thing, like a layman.
Right. But
any kind of E stuff, like they got one foot in the door already at that point. So if they make it easy for people to fund their accounts with Bitcoin, they're of all the companies that are in position to really take advantage of it and maybe kind of expand its use, I think it'd be PayPal.
Yeah, I think the reason maybe they'd want to do this is I guess there's a lot of countries that their banking systems just say, no, we're not going to work with PayPal. And so if you're in those countries, you can't have a PayPal account because you can't fund it.
I wonder if you'd be able to go 2 ways with Bitcoin, though, like fund it with it and then use that as a means, like an arbiter,
I doubt it. I bet they're
I think they have more legal issues when they go to convert Bitcoins to regular currencies. If they were to function as just like, some kind of escrow, maybe they could develop as to provide that kind of service too.
That's interesting, man. Wouldn't that be a wild if they actually went that far? I don't think they're smart enough. I really don't.
Oh well, yeah. Oh well, they
I think they're probably too entrenched. So. Yeah, they're too entrenched. Yeah, and
that's a good point. Yeah, and don't expect too much.
Speaking of smart stuff, Chris Dixon. Chris Dixon is the co-founder and CEO of Hunch or Hunch, and he's a co-founder of Founder Collective. In the past, he served as CEO and co-founder of SiteAdvisor. He invested in technology companies including Skype, Foursquare, Kickstarter. In 2010, Businessweek named him the top angel investor in the technology industry. And he was at TechCrunch Disrupt this last week. And he says He says the smartest people in Silicon Valley are working on Bitcoin products. He is excited. It's a little bit of a long clip, but you got to listen to this because it's what it tells you is the infrastructure is coming. The infrastructure is coming.
So you're venture capitalists now. There are other people at Andreessen Horowitz who are handling infrastructure. You're more focused on consumer-y type things. One of the
Andrew and Horowitz, by the way, is the huge investment capital firm that he works for now.
areas you've been talking about lately is Bitcoin. Yeah. You're pretty strong. Expressed a lot of interest in that, and then it feels like sort of like we're hitting the trough of the hype cycle for that at this point.
If you follow the Bitcoin community, like people always talk about like the great crash of 2011, and so this is like nothing. This is just like another blip in it. Yeah, I don't know if that's true or not, but I think the thing that's most misunderstood about Bitcoin, and I'll just sort of broadly like this math-based currencies, is everyone focuses on it as this what economists would call a store of value, like as a currency, as a place to like, if I'm living in Cyprus and I want to make sure my money is safe, or if I'm sort of one of these sort of libertarian types who doesn't believe in the Federal Reserve, I can like,
Are you?
I'm not. No, I'm pretty normal politically, or middle of the road politically, but which I think is important because I think you can.
How much money have you invested in Bitcoin up to this point?
A fair amount. I mean, I believe in it. So
millions?
No.
I've heard some venture capitalists.
I'm sure people have. I know people in California who have. But one thing I would say is that I think people focus on it as a currency. There's another aspect of it, which is as a sort of a payment mechanism, right? So if you think, basically like if I want to pay somebody, let's say I hire a programmer in, Russia today or something, and I want to pay them $5,000, you have to, one is the biggest issue is they don't know whether they got paid, like you have to either go through ACH, or if you use a credit card, they have to verify who you are. So basically the whole problem of fraud online, which is a massive, massive problem. It's also the payment fees, the fact that there's like all these barriers to do cross-country payments. But in particular, it's the idea that the interesting thing with these math-based currencies is you can pay somebody without them trusting you at all. All they need to do is when they receive the Bitcoin, they can verify they got a Bitcoin. They don't care who sent it to them. And if you think about it, I think this is why people are so excited about it, is that it feels like the internet is an anonymous network with a payment system on top of it, the credit card system that requires verifying identity, which is why you have so much, it's a mismatch there, which is why you have so much fraud and other kinds of friction that are added to the system.
I think that's a really good insight. What he's saying there is the internet, for the most part, is anonymous, and can be. And the credit card system is inherently identity based. Right. Whereas these cryptocurrencies, it's all, as long as you trust the math, it doesn't matter. The math is the identity.
And you got to think about too. I mean, the credit card companies charge like 2 to 4% fees for like each transaction, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I mean, that's a great thing for Bitcoin. That should put pressure, downward pressure on the fees charged by
that's what BitPay is selling their platform on. He goes on. I'll let him continue a little bit.
And the exciting thing about these new kind of currency schemes is that you have sort of a fully anonymous payment system grafted onto an anonymous network. There was when the original HTTP spec, there was an error code 402, 404 when you don't have a page. 402 was error payment required. Like originally there was going to be a payment system. Right. And so in a lot of ways, like, these kinds of Bitcoin things are the payment system that they never got to.
Mm-hmm. And so, are you planning to invest in any Bitcoin startups?
Certainly a very interesting area. I think what's interesting is that you kind of had I think this is also what the critics are underestimating, is that you had a first wave of kind of Bitcoin startups and people interested in it, and that there's some interesting stuff there. But now I think what you're seeing, like if you just talk to the smartest people in Silicon Valley now, is that some of the best entrepreneurs are thinking about getting heavily into it. So I think you're going to see like another wave.
What are the kind of startups you would want to see? I mean, is it?
Well, the obvious ones, there are a bunch of them out there. There's like merchant services, kind of PayPal model. There's exchanges, which are, I just want to go trade Bitcoin. I want to, convert from $1 to whatever. People have talked about sort of bank models where like if you actually want to store the stuff, it turns out it's fairly complicated and, you want something, but I think the other thing that's interesting is, and this is, maybe I'll go on too long about Bitcoin because this is a topic I think is really interesting, but is that I think for a lot of people in tech, finance has been this very frustrating area because it's such a massive market. It's, we see what happens on Wall Street and things. It's very corrupt. And number three is it's so highly regulated that when you do try to go and create a financial tech startup, you often run into regulatory issues. So just to give you an example, there was a whole wave of peer-to-peer lending 7 years ago or so with like Prosper and Zopa and these guys. And they basically they're still around, but they're in completely different form than they originally intended to be. They were supposed to be like, I go on there and I sort of like the eBay of lending. Like you can say I want a loan and I can say I give you a loan. Instead, it turned out to just be basically the supply side now is all hedge funds, because it turned out the regulatory issues were just too much for these companies to actually let individuals make loans. And maybe that was a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know if that was a good idea or bad idea, but the point is these things always get shut down by regulatory issues or by the fact that the hedge funds and the banks have a much lower cost of capital because they, and they get bailed out by the government and all sorts of other things. And so I think a lot of reasons that people in California are so excited about Bitcoin is it's sort of a release valve for all of this pent up frustration.
Amen to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Is that guy just totally dialed in or what?
Yeah, he tore it up.
Yeah, he definitely tore it up. He totally gets it. And what's awesome is Bitcoin was kind of a topic at TechCrunch Disrupt. Another big VC says that Bitcoin is gold 2.0, and he says it's a huge, huge deal. Now, I'm going to butcher this name, Drew.
I knew you would. I saw that and I was like, I ain't reading that.
You don't want to give it a try? Okay. All right. Kamath Pilafaliataya. Anyways, this guy is brilliant. I don't mean to make light of it. He's a former head of AOL Instant Messaging Division. He left when it got crappy. Former Facebook executive, and he's also part owner of the Golden State Warriors NBA League. And he went on to say that he thinks Bitcoin is huge, and it's the event.
Chris talked about it earlier, but Bitcoin and things like it is the equivalent of the red pill. Okay. We are entering a completely world of uncharted water right now.
Have you made any investments in Bitcoin?
So, I own Bitcoin in my hedge fund. I own Bitcoin in my fund. I own Bitcoin in my private account. It is a huge deal. It's a huge, huge, huge deal. Because what you're talking about right now is for the next 3 to 5 years, an unbelievably better store of value. It is gold 2.0, right? The value of gold that hedges the world economy about $9 trillion, right? $1,300 an ounce, of which only $100 to $150 is the actual production value. So all the rest of it is imputed, where, Lena, you and I have decided that it's worth $1,300 an ounce. Well, guess what? I can do the same thing with Bitcoin, except now I can do it outside the purview of every single government. It's being used everywhere where you would think it would be used. Russia, Iran, Iraq, Egypt, Venezuela, Argentina, everywhere where you have currency pressure, everywhere where you want to basically shield your assets. And then after that, it'll probably become a payment mechanism. So in all of these three industries, you're talking about trillions of dollars up for grabs. Up for grabs, right? And it's just about trying something.
Right.
And taking a few months to understand what the opportunity is and then hit the scene. And I think that the cool thing is it's easier to know how to code. It's actually useful in a way where, you can probably hack something together yourself. You can find folks. And so this is the time where people should be trying really big, crazy things.
Wow.
Preach on, brother.
I mean, these are big VCs sitting here saying now is the time, move. And you know what he said that was interesting is he said that people are going to use it to move money around and to bail out, from a collapsing currency. And then once people are done doing that, then it's going to become a medium of transaction.
Right.
And that makes
that was
sense
interesting.
Everybody's going to have a bunch of Bitcoins, right?
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah.
if the U.S., if you had forewarning that the U.S. dollar was going to collapse in 2014, June of 2014, somehow, I mean, you would absolutely just start buying up as many Bitcoins as possible, and then at some point, you're going to sit around and go, "What the hell do I do with all these Bitcoins?"
I got to eat.
Exactly. So I love that. We have links to the articles that cover that, as well as their quotes and some more information in the show notes. By the way, show notes over at jupiterbroadcasting.com. Look for Plan B, Episode 4. We have even more information in there. And I just, wow, man, I just got charged up. And I'm amazed that even after all that really great stuff, the price didn't move much. And I think it's good. I think that's good.
Yeah, we're stable. I mean,
So.
at least people didn't freak out when it crashed. So I think I think we're good.
That or it's because Silk Road's been down for a few days. I'm not sure.
Now, how would you know that,
I
Chris?
don't know.
Just read it online, huh?
You know, the other thing that Bitcoin is going to get used for more and more, and there's more and more people that are moving into this space right now, and the people that are doing it are some of the people that are going to amass some of the early wealth is people that are creating these casinos.
Oh yeah,
And
that must be quite a nice little business.
yeah, in fact, we got a little insight into that. We brought on Paul, the creator of BitVegas. Now, if you're not familiar with BitVegas, it's a Minecraft casino that operates on Bitcoins, and it also has a very friendly community. So if you like gambling and Bitcoin, then you log into this Minecraft server. You go to bitvegas.net. He's got all the information on there. Upon joining, you get 5 play Bitcoins to gamble with, which is neat. So you can just get in there and play right away. Of course, you can't exchange them for real Bitcoins. You can only play them in the game. But there's also a faucet functionality in there, and the player base is also seems to be quite friendly from the experience I've had. Have you had a pretty pleasant experience with the community, Drew?
Yeah, I mean, nobody messes with anybody. Like people actually. I was playing a little earlier today, and people were taking turns over in the minefield.
Being civilized,
games.
even.
Yeah, people standing out. People were actually forming lines. There was a guy I was trying to play blackjack. Guy jumped in front of me, so I couldn't see my hand. But there's a cool thing: if you click on a guy that's close to you, it makes him disappear. So people can't really screw with you if you're unable to see, your hand.
Oh, it is an extremely clever system. So we had a chance to chat with Paul earlier today on the live stream. Here's a little bit of that. Joining us on the line is Paul, the creator and owner of BitVegas, bitvegas.net, a casino that lives inside a Minecraft server. Paul, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. So Drew and I are huge fans of your work. In fact, Drew, you've been like marathon playing on BitVegas for all week, haven't you?
I may or may not spend 6 hours a day logged in there. Last 3 or 4 days.
And so for folks who are not really familiar with BitVegas, you should really go over to bitvegas.net and check it out. It's kind of astonishing, Paul, what you've built. And am I right in that this is sort of a one-man operation?
Yep, I'm the only one that runs it. I'm basically looking at getting some staff on soon as the server gets bigger. But besides that, I'm the sole developer, invented all the games, the casino, and everything.
And so this is so simple. You log into Minecraft and you plug in your server information, and before you know it, I download a custom texture pack from your server, and I'm walking around inside a fantastically built, wonderfully designed casino. I mean, the attention to detail that you've put into this. You even have a lounge and a relaxing area that really serves probably no functional purpose other than just took you a lot of time to make it and just gives a nice ambiance for the community. How long did it take you to build this?
Well, I can't take full credit for the lounge. That was actually built by the players. There is times I get the players in and I just give them an area and I basically say, here, turn it into something cool.
No, really? So they're able to build even... So Paul, I assume that wasn't possible just because of security reasons or something.
No, basically building in Minecraft is just placing and removing blocks. So
sure.
I can actually set an area and when a player walks into it, they'll get build rights. And yeah, but the rest of the casino was built by me. I had the whole thing running up in about 2 to 3 weeks when I started, but now this was about 3 months ago.
Well, okay. So this hasn't actually been. I for some reason thought this had been around a little longer. And both the thing that both Drew and I were wondering is, how the hell does this work? How can you do all of this in Minecraft?
Yeah, really.
Well, Minecraft is heavily moddable. I don't know if you guys have played other servers before, but you can basically change anything you like on the server side. It's all done with events. So basically, I have the standard Minecraft survival game that I then disable, player combat because we don't want players fighting.
Sure.
Then I just hook into events. So when a player left clicks, I can make the server do what I want, such as place a bet, and it's all done on the server side, and it basically just returns a chat message to the player. So I can basically change it to anything I want, and then by changing the textures, I can change the client-side look of the game into a casino.
Well, and you must have some sort of sophisticated back-end tracking software, right? Because one of the things you do that's really cool is you provide probable stats. So like if I'm going to get in the pig race, I can click on the pig and I can get reports on how it's performed essentially. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, that's pretty good. I actually plan on adding a lot more to the pig racing, but basically the provably fair system is to just prove that the casino isn't cheating and changing the the numbers. You know, if someone bets a whole Bitcoin on black, I'm proving that I'm not just changing the result to red on roulette.
Right.
That's the point of the system.
Well, I commend you, and I wonder though, is there any kind of special security challenge when you're building inside a world where the players can change the environment at all? Is that a problem at all?
One hasn't come up yet. Like I said, they can't change anything in the world unless I allow them to. And even if they could, the casino is, think of it as a web browser for an online website casino. So really, they can only change their own browser. They can't actually change anything on the server. When the whole running around and clicking on blocks and that kind of thing is all just on the client side, where if my server has good security, then they're not going to get through it. Just like a website casino.
Sure.
Do you have it like, do you just turn it on to allow people to make edits to the actual room itself, or is it always available to like move stuff around or make stuff?
No, it has to be turned on, and I set the area, like I say, you know, from X or Y position this to this, they can edit the blocks, and then I can turn it off at any time. So I make sure I'm online when I have people editing.
All right. Do you plan on making any like more of the that digging game? I forgot what it's called, but there's only 2 rooms for it, and one of them gets pretty busy sometimes.
Yeah, well, just in the last few weeks, I've started to get really, really popular. So I do have a whole new casino design actually in the works.
Wow.
Which, like I said, I've only got 2 minefields at the moment. I think the new one has about 20 of them. And I'll be raising the player cap to about 200.
Yeah, I was wondering about that as well. You only got 48 as the cap right now, right?
Yeah, only 48 at the moment. And that's just to make sure, like I said, I'm the only developer, I'm the only staff. I don't think I could handle 200 players right now. I mean, already right now I wake up with about 20 support tickets for all different things. And
I would imagine. We have a Minecraft server for our podcast community, and it can be challenging to keep up sometimes. Of course, they always want to add stuff to it all the time. But, that kind of brings up a question that Drew and I had. And how do you securely store coins in an environment like this?
Well, most of my casino uses the blockchain API. When someone goes to deposit coins, they basically get their own receiving address. That's secured online with if you know how blockchain works, just a normal password, secondary password. So I'm basically relying on their system. Then with those coins, I send them to a different wallet, and I would call this my hot wallet. This is the most exposed and most easy to hack because my blockchain password and all that kind of stuff is stored in my server. So if someone did manage to get into my server, they probably could get my wallet password. But I do keep that fairly low on funds and keep the rest in a cold wallet, which I just top it up as I need to go. Right. So a successful hack attempt someone would get away with maybe 20 to 30 Bitcoins, but that's nothing in the scheme of what the casino has.
Did you want to comment at all on that? Are you making a profit or a living from this?
I imagine it's going pretty well because I'm not doing too good lately.
Yeah, Drew might be keeping you going.
Yesterday.
Yeah, it does pretty well. It has its winning days and its losing days, I guess, from a casino point of view. Obviously, sometimes someone does win big, so I have to pay it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what's like the craziest thing that you've seen though? Like, do you get any kind of reports where you can see like where somebody but like an entire real life Bitcoin on a pig that was got like a 1% chance of winning? Anything like crazy like that?
I've seen that happen. I haven't seen someone win that yet. So
I did with play money.
I think there's a pig called Betty the Fat, and sometimes she has about a 200 times payout. So I'm yet to see that win. I think I've seen someone win it on 0.001 of a Bitcoin.
Now, something you do that's kind of interesting is I don't know if you call it a faucet functionality, but you have a referral system functionality that sort of incentivizes players to spread the word about BitVegas, right?
Yep.
How does that work?
Well, basically, when you first join the server, there's a gift box, basically. And for every 15 minutes that you're online, you can open the box and you get 0.5 milli Bitcoin, which doesn't sound like too much, but compared to most faucets, it's actually quite a lot. I think I have the best faucet still that exists online. Once you run out of the 30 free gifts, you can do referrals. So anyone who clicks your link and then joins the game gives you another 10 gifts, I believe, and it also gives you 5 milli Bitcoins instantly as well.
And I think I like what you're doing about this is, so I would imagine there's a few components at play here. You have players who can actually work with you to extend and rebuild and improve the casino when they're trusted and allowed to. You have this faucet functionality that sort of helps nursemaid new players into the game. And then something else that's kind of really what was the number one thing that made it playable for me is you also do something called like play money. You know, like a lot of casinos do this, but you do it very cleverly inside the Minecraft context. And I wonder, do the majority of your players remain on the play money, or do you see people graduate up to actual Bitcoins pretty quick?
I find because I give away free real Bitcoins, most people go into their real money mode. But it takes you half an hour of free gifts just to be able to place the minimum bet. So a lot of people do stick around for half an hour, get the real Bitcoin, and then gamble it. But besides that, play money. I would say, I think it's around 25% of my players actually deposit real Bitcoins, which is fairly high.
Yeah, okay.
And the deposits work really quick as well. I mean, I think I got a little hooked, and I started sending money into it. But it only took like less than a minute for it to show up in my Minecraft thing. So
we accept deposits with 0 confirmations, and then to protect ourselves from double spending, it needs to get 6 confirmations before you can actually withdraw it.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
That's clever, actually. Now, Drew, do you have any other questions before I get into like the scary question?
Man, I just had it, but I forgot.
Well, you know,
if you go to withdraw coins, like, does it give you like a static link to the website where you can do something? Like, how do you withdraw coins to your own wallet?
So you just type in the game, you type /withdraw, and then the amount of coins you want. It will then give you a link, it's set up through the game onto the web server. And then once you go there, it will confirm the amount you're withdrawing, and it basically gives you just like a form field where you can paste in any address you like.
How do you authenticate to it though? Is it like a short-lived time token for that link to stay active? Or?
That's basically right. It generates a random code that's I think 16 characters long, as well as another code which is just the ID of the transaction, and then it gives you a link which includes both of them. So unless someone can brute force that random 16 character string between the time if you type in the command and putting in your address, then it's pretty safe.
Okay, that sounds good.
Now, do you? This is the scary question, because this is what I worry about, and I don't mean to imply there's any reason to be concerned, but do you worry about U.S. legal action or noise being made about online gambling and things like that?
Yeah, well, I'm actually not based in the U.S. I think Bitcoins in the US is the only place that there's actually been a report released on the legal status of them.
Right.
So outside the US, there's not really much laws. And I did actually go to see a gambling lawyer about this. And basically I was advised that as long as, for now, I don't actually withdraw the Bitcoins into fiat money, or put fiat money into Bitcoins, which I haven't done, which means that I'm only using it as a virtual currency and I'm not actually technically profiting off the casino.
Right, but then that means you never get to profit off the casino.
Yeah, well,
unless you could buy everything you need in Bitcoin.
That's right. This is more a precaution for when a law does come out in other countries. I mean, I could probably withdraw it for cash or something now. But once there's a law released, and if there's a law that strictly says something to do with me not being able to run the casino, then I may have to shut it down or offshore it or something. But I'll look into that when it happens.
Yeah.
I figure I haven't seen a single gaming service shut down yet based on that it's Bitcoin run.
Right, and actually being off the web in some senses actually gives you another layer of just being out of sight a little bit. So maybe you're not so first on somebody's radar.
Exactly. There's a lot bigger casinos than me that I think are going to go down first.
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose as more companies come along that offer services and products via Bitcoin payment, you're going to be all right? Because then you could just never have to convert out of Bitcoin.
Yeah, basically that's my plan with Bitcoin. I'm a pretty big enthusiast, so I do plan on spending all my Bitcoins on Bitcoin services.
Now, you mentioned maybe a potential refresh to the casino. Any other kind of big plans you're working on?
Yep. So I am, like I said, redesigning the whole casino from scratch. It's not going to be this flat 3-room casino anymore. It's actually going to be more multi-level. So there's going to be elevators and all that kind of stuff. There's going to be a high rollers area, which is if you have a green name in the casino, which means you have more than 1 Bitcoin in your account, you're allowed to enter the high rollers room. There is actually another tier, a gold name, if you have over 25 Bitcoins, but I don't have a plan for room for those yet.
I suppose maybe you might spoil this since you're going to redesign. My wife wanted me to ask you this. There is a room, a bonus room you go into, and it's like you jump on the different blocks, and you get up to a secret room. Do you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, yep.
She wants to know what's at the top. She tried for like an hour to get up to the top.
Everyone gets so disappointed. There's basically a cake.
Oh.
She'll like that. She'll like that. Very nice. One of the players on the server told her that you turn into a ninja. So then she
Yeah. That doesn't happen. I've heard players say that. So
there you
I
go.
can't put that true, but who knows?
All right, well, we've got to ask this question. Drew and I, we were scratching our head and said, what are we going to get in trouble for with the audience if we don't ask Paul about this? And here it is. Do you have any plans to introduce Litecoin support in the future? Or any other cryptocurrencies?
Well, I actually had no plan on doing this until about a week ago when I actually started learning what Litecoins are. Mm-hmm. I've always just been pro-Bitcoin, anti-anything else. So I thought I'd better actually open up my mind a bit more and actually went and learned about them. So I think I will. I hope this doesn't get taken. Everyone's going to ask me every 10 minutes now when it's getting added. But
in theory, you might be considering it.
Yeah, I'm considering adding Litecoins, as maybe some other ones too.
And it seems like a great time. I mean, as the ASICs come online, I think you're going to have a bunch of GPU miners that are going to switch over to mining Litecoin. So there's going to be a big surge in the actual amount of coins. And then at the same time, or roughly around that time, Mt. Gox is going to start issuing trades for Litecoins, so there's going to be a lot of volume there. So you could end up with people that have a big stash of a virtual currency that's kind of perfect for this kind of thing. Yeah,
and as far as I know, there's not really anywhere to spend Litecoins right now. So being one of the first.
Oh, that's another advantage, isn't it?
So yeah.
All right, Drew. Anything else we wanted to touch on before we let Paul go?
No, I think I'm good.
Paul, was there anything you wanted to mention before we hang up on you?
No, I got nothing else to say.
All right, man. Well, keep up the fantastic work. And would you be willing to come on the show maybe down the road and give us an update on how things are going?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Keep up the great work. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks again to Paul for coming on the show. If we talk to him again soon, go check out the BitVegas. And I'll have a link in the show notes. If you use that link, my wife gets the affiliate. I put my wife's user account in there because I'm trying to get her to play more with Bitcoins, and she loves Minecraft. So I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to win the wife over. So if you want to check out bitvegas.net, just use that link. We have a BitVegas link in the show notes, and my wife will get some of the millibits. Is that millibits? Can we call them that?
I don't think that's the semi-official term.
No, I don't think so.
Micro BTC, because they're trying to mirror like the metric system's naming scheme.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about Litecoin. We're now in the Litecoin section of the show, and this is either one that generates a lot of anger, which Drew you've been dealing with, and
only one guy had a little exchange with the guy. He actually he wanted to debate it a little bit, I think. But
what was his main? Do you remember the crux of his main? Just that does it feel like it takes away from Bitcoin?
It takes away from it, but it also doesn't introduce anything. I mean, he's really right about that. It doesn't really introduce anything that Bitcoin is incapable of doing. Right.
Right.
I mean, think about it. Like, what does Litecoin have that Bitcoin implicitly does not? And I don't think there's anything there.
Yeah, I think that's a little. So that's kind of like looking at it in the reverse. I think that's the good thing about it because it allows Litecoin to act as a testing ground for certain things that would go into Bitcoin, and it allows for application compatibility. It allows for a lot of. I mean, it just streamlines so much stuff. The fact that they're so similar in some ways. But we'll see. Maybe we'll play it out. It's something we'll continue to kind of kick around, I think. But, this last week, I don't know if it was just after the show came out or what, Mt. Gox put out an official press release talking about some of the denial of service issues they've had recently. And they said that in this press release, they said that they're actually planning to add Litecoin support 2 weeks ago. But the events with the DDoS and all that had derailed that plan. So right now they're focused on overall stability at Mt. Gox, but then they'll be adding Litecoin shortly after they get things kind of settled down.
Do you think the price is going to go crazy when they do that, like in a positive way, like upward? What do you think is going to happen when they? Because that's an interesting question. I think a lot of people might have that are holding Litecoins is what happens when Mt. Gox starts trading them.
It could start to go up. The problem with Litecoin, and we kind of touched on it with the interview with Paul, is not a lot to do with it right now other than buy Bitcoin.
Right. Yeah. I don't know of anything to do with it. I mean, it seems like I was telling one guy.
There's a Silk Road like.
Oh, true. It's like Atlantis or something.
Atlantis, but I don't know how. I've never seen it. And I don't know if I don't know how strong it is, but so there's some stuff that's coming up. I think part of the problem is the nice thing about Mt. Gox is you can convert them. You're going to be able to convert them in. I mean, you could do this on BTCE or anything, but you're going to have more people that are going to be able to convert them into dollars or whatever.
It's a lot easier for people to get money in and out into Litecoins than relative to like BTCE or anything like that. Because most people that are involved with that will be getting involved with Litecoins are probably already involved with Bitcoins. If they are and already involved with Bitcoins, then they likely have a Mt. Gox account.
Well, and the other thing to remember too is that there's a ton. Remember we covered last week, the CEO of Mt. Gox said 20 million in, 1 million out every day.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of money sitting in Gox that maybe people looking at the price of Bitcoin saying, it's getting a little rich for my blood, but I'll drop $100 on Litecoin when it's $5 a coin or whatever it's going to be when it hit Gox.
Yeah, and I think Litecoin is going to be for at least a little while until it gets some good infrastructure around it. Just primarily a speculation device, I would guess.
Do you feel like the price of Litecoin is somehow a proxy health indicator for Bitcoin?
I think it could definitely evolve like that. I don't know if it exists in that form now, but it's kind of there, I guess.
It seems like Litecoin only goes up when Bitcoin's going up, right? For the most part, not always, but for the most part, doesn't it kind of seem like that?
It does have some degree of parity. People have been crashing it because it's pretty easy to crash it with the depth, of the Litecoin trading market. Because it dropped down pretty bad, pretty recently. It came back up while the Bitcoin price was pretty stable. So I think it will have more parity in the future, but it mostly follows it, but it's still got some craziness to it.
I thought it was interesting that just the fact that Mt. Gox would be offering Litecoin was newsworthy for Computer World to cover. I mean, it's, for them to cover something about Bitcoin these days, that's not too odd. But for them to actually cover a story about Litecoin, that's interesting.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
that's an interesting.
There's got to be a lot of interest. Because all these miners, like, what are they doing? There's got to be a lot of dudes out there with a lot of GPUs that are looking to do something.
Well, and I look at it, in the context of BitVegas, and I think I would much rather be losing Litecoins to gambling than actual Bitcoins. It seems, that seems like. Right now, at this stage, if Bitcoin is successful, you could be playing with something. We all know the pizza story.
Don't remind me.
Right? We all know you could be playing with something that could be worth a lot more from now.
Mm-hmm.
That's my main argument against Silk Road too. Is that weed that cost you half a Bitcoin today, that might be $5,000 weed 10 years in the future. So it's something to think about. But at the same time, you also wonder if gosh, I didn't play it. I didn't include it in the show, but there is this great clip of this little community now that has sprung up. I can't remember where it's at, but it's a little town, and they're kind of known for being left-wing radicals, I guess. Sorry, it's not in the U.S. And they're accepting Bitcoins all over the town. And so
that is cool.
They don't even care. They don't even care that they're at a certain dollar because all they do is they just immediately figure out what the value is at the time of the transaction, and they just trade that amount. And if it goes up or goes down, they don't even sweat it. They don't care at all. So, take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, but something to consider.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
And so I hope to see something with Litecoin because hell, I'm mining a ton of them right now.
I know, right? Come on, baby, come on.
All right, so we got an email in from James, and he pointed out that Coinatron, LTCmine.ru, BTCE, GiveMeLTCE.com have all been experiencing massive brute force login attempts over the last week. And this is from a post from one of the operators. He says, due to brute force attempts, we need to force all users to change their passwords, and wallet address change options automatically we're going to start appearing for folks. Here's the thing he wanted to pass along is, this is a perfect opportunity to remember everyone. As you're trying out different pool sites, use a different password at each pool site or where anything like this. Use a freaking different password because if they get one and you're using that same password at another pool, then they can log into those other pools and change your payout address and take all your funds. And along those same lines, James passes along, from time to time, go audit what your payout address is and make sure that the payout address is the right one, that you're not sending the coins somewhere. I used DeepBit for a long time when I was mining Bitcoin, and I had it set to automatically pay out at a certain point. So that way I never had X amount of coins just sitting in my account there. And, because these things do get hacked.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I just set up a 10 LTC thing for We Mine LTC to put it over to my BTCE account.
Yeah, exactly. So
you want to have it keep moving out. You want to keep too much there.
Right, but if I was a clever hacker and I actually got into your account, I might just go change that payout address and not do anything else.
Yeah, right. Well, the cool thing is
email notification.
BTCE, I noticed today when I went to exchange some Litecoins for Bitcoins to then put them into my Minecraft little BitVegas thing, is they sent, when I went to withdraw the coins to a different address, they didn't do it initially. They sent me an email that had a confirm or deny individual URL token, so I could then authorize it through my email.
I like that.
That's a little bit, multi-factor kind of thing.
Yeah, I think some of the other guys are working on a couple of the online wallet sites are working on integrating some of that functionality. Anytime you have something that also offers two-factor, turn that on if you can. Like a lot of you out there I know use blockchain.info for your online wallet. Absolutely. Blockchain.info, we haven't really reported on it a lot, but I always see reports of people's accounts getting compromised because they're not using good passwords. Turn on the two-factor if you can. Also, something else that I freaking love is Lastpass. And so Lastpass will generate these awesome passwords for you that you can feel comfortable about having, on your important accounts. And it'll generate unique passwords for each site. And it'll store them in an encrypted database that is encrypted locally before it's uploaded to the Lastpass servers. It integrates with Android, iOS, every browser extension out there. It is really good stuff. And you can use this to manage all of your different Bitcoin account logins and then have unique passwords for each one. Is the number one thing you can do when using a Bitcoin-related service, because all of these guys out there are under attack constantly as soon as they get popular, and they all have different levels of security.
Yeah, and you always keep it unique. I'm glad you brought LastPass up because I'm a total evangelical with it. It's the greatest extension I've ever had for any browser. It's like one of my number one used things. It's a beautiful thing. You get multi-factor authentication, dude. You can have a YubiKey.
Yep.
All that stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Like I can't get into my vault unless I have to have two-factor. You gotta have the PIN too.
Yeah, and like Chris said, it's encrypted prior to going to the server, so
and they
don't sit, in any special way, that can be hacked easily on the server side.
Yeah, and they really work hard to keep it that way. They've always been hyper vigilant on security, and they work their butt off to get on every platform possible.
Yeah, and the passwords that you generate are kind of often a little too good for a lot of websites out there. So
yeah, that has happened. Yeah,
I hate that.
That is pretty funny. All right, so before we wrap up this week's episode, just want to remind you guys, call us and leave us your voicemail describing your mining setup from 1 GPU to 1,000. Give us a call, 1-352-58-PLAN-B, and tell us about it so we can play a clip. Try not to make it too long because we want to be able to fit as many as we can. We're hoping we get quite a few, so we need as many of you to do it. So give us a ring. And don't forget also, when you're over on the show notes, go check out those fantastic show notes. We have a spot there where you can tip the show. We don't have any sponsors yet, but we might add them at some point. But if you just want to thank the show, there's a tip address there, and that supports the Jupiter Broadcasting Network. And depending on how much we get there, we'll see what we do with it. And also, don't forget you can join us live Tuesdays, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. GMT over at jblive.tv on Tuesday, and hang out in our chat room. Man, Drew, is there anything else we want to touch on before we get out of here?
No, I am good.
Holy smokes. All right. So join us next week for our mining extravaganza as Drew and I kick around different ways you can generate maybe some Litecoins or even Bitcoins. And then, later on when I get one of my ASICs, if I ever get my butterfly, ever, we'll have to do an updated version of our mining episode so we can look at it from that angle. So it'll be like a multi-part. And then down the road, we'll also do some more Bitcoin gambling stuff. Yeah. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in this week's episode of Plan B. We'll see you right back here next week.